Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane, joined by Keith Smith. As always, Keith, how you doing? Starting another week, getting that much closer to the playoffs. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, it's March now.
That's
We're,
right.
we're into March. This is probably the best month for basketball. I think just as a whole. Obviously love the NBA playoffs when they come around in the end of April, but March, you've got March Madness. You still got the NBA in full swing. Like it's all great, man. I was mapping everything out for the next couple weeks, and I was like, oh, we got basketball all day because of the conference tournament starting up later this week and then into next week. I'm beyond excited. Then obviously the NCAA tournament after that. So it's a great time for hoops, and I'm super excited. Everything's really coming together now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we're watching, keeping an eye on the standings every day. Teams are moving up and down in the standing. You've got some interesting matchups, all kinds of stuff going on. Unfortunately, also a number of injuries. And Keith, we're hitting that time of the year where injuries are now becoming injuries that would not normally be designated as season enders are becoming season enders because we're getting that close to the end of the regular season now. So that's the unfortunate part of this, but it is still an exciting time of year overall for basketball.
And you wake up this morning on the East Coast, and your Lakers are in second place
That's
in
right.
the West. And I was doing a little. I'm going to do a little tiers thing on the basketball bulletin this week, I think, because there's a couple like not necessarily light night game wise, but light nights on. I don't know that the games are going to be so good this week, so I'm going to try to work that in there. And I was like, you know what I'm doing? I'm bumping them a tier. I'm putting them in there with the other the other contenders. So that top, spoiler alert, that top tier is going to be four. What has been four teams, it's going to be five teams now. So
Exciting stuff. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it just this is not a show topic.
Sure.
But the more I think, like, what an ignorant, stupid trade that was by the Mavericks to trade Luka. Like, just so incredibly dumb. Like, none of it makes sense. All of the reasoning after, none of that has made sense. And now, did you see they announced they're raising season ticket prices?
I just did something on the Basketball Bulletin YouTube channel for that where I just ranted about how dumb they are for like 10 minutes. I can't believe that in the face of all this fan backlash, kicking fans out of the arena, right, who are protesting the trade, but not doing so disrespectfully, just voicing their displeasure, kicking them out of the arena. It's constantly leaking negative stuff about Luka, which is only alienating fans more. And now they're raising ticket prices. Keith, I said it over the Basketball Bulletin. I thought it was absurd to even consider that they could be major leaguing the city of Dallas here. But the farther we get into this, the more I'm like, well, at this point, if they're even 8% ticket price raise, like maybe they are trying to.
I don't know.
It's insane.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like we haven't even gotten like full forced Luka yet in any of these games because he has not shot it well for the most part, and then he's had a couple games where he's been a little sloppy with the ball. And he's already been so awesome that it's like it's only going to get worse for Mavs fans at this point as it goes along. So, then of course, better for Laker fans, I guess, is that's the plus side. The long suffering Laker fans will have to.
I still think when I look at like the playoffs and stuff, and we've got plenty of news topics we need to get into here. I know, but I still think the Mavs can be a real threat come playoff time if they can get healthy. If they can get healthy, that can be a pretty difficult front line to deal with. I think there is a world where the Mavs are a real problem in the postseason, but they kind of have to be right now. If they're not, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go like that. Is their one saving grace right now. The one way to fix this is to win. And that's it. And so they've got to get healthy. They just have to. Like it feels like there's so much on the line here in terms of the relationship between Mavs fans and their organization.
Yeah, I said this during our live show on Friday. I feel like we've got our 20 postseason teams. Like I feel like those are pretty well set. Maybe that last one in the East changes out, but I really feel like in the West, we've definitely got our 10 teams for sure. I just think Phoenix, and we're going to talk about them in a moment here. They're like, what a mess that was last night for them. And if you're Dallas, as rough as things have been, you're only a half game out of sixth.
Yeah.
So you're only a half game out of being in the assured playoff spot. That's the difference, I think. It's so crazy that you could be sixth in a week, or you could be 10th in a week.
Mhm.
In 10th, you have to win 2 games on the road in the play-in just to get into the playoffs, and then face the Thunder, which good luck. So now it's like, here we go, with this. And that's going to be, I mean, the Thunder have the conference clinched. That's over and done with.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't officially, just because someone will say, no, they don't, but they do.
Well, okay. Technically, math-wise, they may not, but
it's just a matter of weeks here until that happens. Then that 2 through 5 battle is going to be awesome, because those teams are all super tight there. And then 6 through 10, just ridiculous. Like how, it's a half game. One game in the loss column.
One game could change your whole season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be great. I was looking at it too. I looked at it the last day of the season. Let me pull that back up again. Here is, you remember, if folks don't know, everybody plays that last day. So in the West, these are some of the matchups we have. Clippers and Warriors play each other, which is, that could be a huge game.
That'd be awesome.
Dallas and Memphis play each other. Maybe, we'll see how much that means. Denver and Houston plays each other. Sacramento Phoenix could have been a big game. Probably won't be, but that Clippers Warriors game could be massive on the last day of the season. That could be, one of those ones where that's like must watch TV. So,
and I'm looking at the schedule now. Here, I'll share it with everybody. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and they are indeed doing. Oh, the stupid pop-up got me on this. They are indeed doing the thing where they all tip at the same time, which is always fun, because then your scoreboard watching around the league. You got all these 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern Time, if you want to look at it that way. They're doing all those. That's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun last day of the season. I think there's going to be a lot on the line, particularly in the West, on the last day, which is always a blast.
Yeah, without a doubt. And by then you'll have teams that'll be full on launched into tanking that are like, where we don't even care, and they're just going to hand the games to other teams. But it's going to be great to watch. I mean, we got a little over a month left in the season. It's every day. Like, you have to literally look at the standings every single day to understand where teams are at. And that's great.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, let's get into our news here. I guess let's just start here with, since they're on the screen right now and everything, the Suns setting. What a mess. I almost swore right there. What a mess in Phoenix.
Was it a blank show? Was that where we were headed?
No, it was going to be what a effing mess.
Oh man.
Because it just is. You look at the comments coming out from Kevin Durant, you look at just the vibe around this, like, they know they're done. They know their season is over, and you can see it. They lost their last game, but 28-33, which is just, it's not good enough in the Western Conference. A negative 2.1 point differential. Their 3 stars do not fit together, and they're 2-8 in their last 10. And now there's a 4-game gap between them and the 10 seed. They're done. And the only thing they have to look forward to now is a Kevin Durant trade this summer, which is almost certainly coming based on all the reporting that's out there.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people say maybe they're going to look towards a draft pick. They don't have their pick this year. Their pick goes to Houston or Brooklyn, and there's a bunch of weird stuff if Houston's pick falls in a certain range. It's just, there's a lot of weirdness with it, but just know they don't have their own pick. So they're going to be handing their pick to a team there. And I'm glad you pulled it up. Yeah, Kevin Durant was basically like, this was embarrassing. We embarrassed the fans and ourselves. He admitted when things get tough, they fold, basically. And that's exactly what happened. The Wolves went on a run in the second half. They were down 2 going into halftime. They went on a big run in the second half, took the lead, and then Phoenix basically quit. It was like, all right, we're done. And they look miserable. They look like those guys don't want to be any part of playing with each other anymore. It just looks awful. And you're right. It's going to be a Kevin Durant trade. I mean, that's the reports are all over the place. I think Brian Windhorst put it out there like it's clear that they're making a trade of KD, and that's going to be step one, I guess, of probably many. And I don't think they're going to do anything towards, well, let's trade them to Houston and get our picks back and rebuild. I think they're going to, let's trade them and try to be the best we can and push this forward, because I just don't think anybody who's running the show there is in for a rebuild.
Now, let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this last night, earlier today as well. What does, from the Suns' perspective, the ideal Kevin Durant trade look like? Do you trade him and try to get a different star-ish player? Or do you say, you know what, the 3-star build, it's too difficult under the new CBA if these 3 pieces don't fit together. Can we trade Kevin Durant and turn him into like 3 guys that all fit well alongside Devin Booker and Bradley Beal? What's the preferred route there in Phoenix?
I do that second one where it is, let's try to break this contract up into some guys around Devin Booker. I think the issue when you go so top heavy, we're seeing this with Philadelphia. If one of those guys is out, and that's not even Philly, we cautioned like, this could be awesome, but these guys are injury prone. Even if you had the healthiest 3 guys do get hurt. Stuff happens. And if you're so top heavy and you lose one, you're just going to struggle. You're going to have a hard time. I'm preaching the choir with Laker fans, right? For a few years there, it was LeBron misses time, AD misses time, and you just kind of, you can never get over the hump because they're not there. You didn't have the requisite depth behind those guys to move it forward. So that's what I would worry about if I'm Phoenix. I would try to, let's rebalance a little bit. Everything will orbit around Devin Booker. We're going to get guys who really fit with him and can maximize him. And we'll try that for a little bit while we still work around and figure out what to do with Bradley Beal, because that's still an issue on the books as well.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that. There's rumblings that Bradley Beal may have actually had a trade suitor in the Washington Wizards. Now, I'm shocked, but obviously the big prerequisite, Bradley Beal would have to waive that no trade clause, which was he actually willing to do that to go back to Washington? I don't think it even got to that point, but that the Wizards were one of the teams reportedly talking about maybe taking on Bradley Beal in exchange for some type of assets that would be coming their way, future draft picks and maybe young players and stuff like that. But does that tell us that maybe there is a market for Bradley Beal? Although, Keith, it's a moot point. If Bradley Beal doesn't want to leave Phoenix, he doesn't leave Phoenix, and that's that.
That's it. That last part is the key part. I think there's probably a world where the Brooklyn Nets would happily take Bradley Beal's contract into their cap space this summer if they were paid to do it. And clearly Phoenix picked up some draft capital to be able to do something like that in that trade that they made, where they traded their 1 tradable pick to Utah for like the worst.
That was such a dangerous trade now, because they thought they were getting Jimmy with that trade, and it didn't happen.
Exactly. And so sure, if I'm Brooklyn, it's like, okay, yeah, why not? Like, we're probably in a couple of years of rebuilding. If we do start to get good, worst comes to worst, maybe he can score 15 points a night off the bench for us, and we'll figure it out over the next couple of years. But if I'm Bradley Beal, he's probably like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going. Like, I'm going to stay here. And that's where the problem comes in. I think with Washington, maybe your hope was, hey, we'll take those 3 picks you just got, because we're certainly in this thing for the long haul. And he already came from here. He already knows how it works here in Washington.
Right.
He was happy here. He liked being here. Never really wanted to be traded in the first place. Let's bring him back and we'll move forward. But as far as a real market goes, I don't think so. I mean, it'll come back up again. Over the summer, it'll come back up again up to the trade deadline, where it'll be, who wants to trade for Bradley Beal? Maybe we'll get the wind of, all right, Team X kind of likes Bradley Beal. And what does help is, after this season, there's only 2 years left on the contract. After the next season, there's only 1 year left, because I'm pretty sure he's picking up that player option. So once we're down to that, it's an expiring deal, and we know those are always movable. And that summer 26, summer 27, we may see free agency start to swing back into being a thing again. So we might see a little bit of movement there, but yeah, it's going to be tough.
It really is. This is And the farther into this contract that we get, the more tradable it becomes. There's 2 years left on it right now, but I mean, I think Beal, he has a family and all of that. Like, this is the side of it that a lot of times fans don't consider that much. Like, it also means, what if his kids are super happy in Phoenix? You know what I mean? Like, it means uprooting your family. It means uprooting, all of that kind of stuff. It's possible Bradley Beal just says, no, I don't want to leave, and winds up staying. But it'll be one of the things. There'll be Kevin Durant trade talks. We'll get to fire the Kevin cannon a bunch of times this summer. But they're also, Bradley Beal will once again be a name that's out there, and we'll see if they can find a team that he wants to go. That's the biggest question. Find a team that Beal wants to go to, and then try to figure it out from there.
Tough and that's Phoenix. Almost the way you have to do this. You have to think of it through, let's find a team he's okay with going to. I think the problem is going to be Bradley Beal is probably going to be coming back and saying, tell me where you want to send me, and then I'll let you know. I don't think he's going to go and say, here's the 5 teams I'll approve a trade to or anything like that. At least not yet. Maybe by the time we're going into that being an expiring contract, he may say that, but it's funny. We've heard all this discussion about Joel Embiid, Paul George, even Beal, Durant to some extent. We've seen it, if we're going to believe it, to rear its head with Luka, which is the only thing that makes sense why the Mavs traded him, is our team's going to be reluctant to give out that 35% of the cap max. We'll see, right? I think we overreact. It was like everybody saying that there's going to be no trades because these aprons are too hard. And then look what happened, right? It was awesome.
Yeah.
So teams figure stuff out. So I'm not going to go too far to say, yeah, no one's getting the 35% of the cap max. I do feel pretty confident in saying nobody's getting handed a no trade clause on a deal that runs 4 or 5 seasons. If it's like LeBron year over year, rolling it over into, extensions where he's getting no trade clauses and things like that, and that's fine. Like, is what it is. Like, that's a no trade clause, but that's like a whole different animal of its own. And of course, you'll always have the implied no trade clauses, which land when guys are on 1-year contracts and the like with bird rights at the end. But the just hand a no trade clause on a 4 or 5 year contract, I think we're probably done with that for a while.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Let's get into, oh my God, the rest of this is almost all injuries. Joel Embiid, this happened after we finished our live show on Friday. Joel Embiid out for the season. Kate, the 76ers, they are, or should be anyway, in tank mode. They did win a game the other night. Quentin Grimes went nuts, but 44 points. But Joel Embiid, they're shutting him down for the season, trying to figure out what the options are. The thing that was concerning to me was not that they're shutting him down for the season, because I think it makes the most sense. You could see it. He's not right out there on the floor. Shutting him down for the season and still trying to figure out their treatment options. That, to me, was they still aren't quite sure how to handle Joel Embiid and the knee issues and all these problems that he's had. This could get bad here. I hope it doesn't. I hope, obviously, this fixes things for him and he comes back and he's totally healthy next year. But it seems like there's some uncertainty in how to deal with Joel Embiid moving forward. And that's a little bit of a red flag there to me, Keith.
Definitely worrisome that we don't have a plan yet. That part is concerning for sure. I'll silver lining it a little with the important part is shut him down.
Yes.
Like, there's no, even if it's another 2 weeks, there's no reason to play him right now. Here's the part that really concerned me. Within the reporting that he had to go to ownership and tell them, I just don't feel right. It's not getting better. That's a huge red flag to me that something is broken somewhere in the chain of communication between Embiid, the coaches, the front office, the medical staff, and ownership. You have to have all 5 of those parties have to be on the same page, especially with a player of this caliber. And clearly they were not. Someone there was, we think he can play. And that's worrisome to me that we're in a spot where, oh man, he had to go that far to kind of prove it. That's concerning. So silver lining, he's out for the year. That's how it should be. And then we kind of go from there.
And then by winning the other night, they are now, if the draft order went chalk, they would give the 7th pick to the Thunder because that's where it would fall. Not ideal. We were talking about, can the 76ers lose enough? And maybe they still can, but now they're 3 games up on Brooklyn. Can they lose enough? I'm sorry, up on Toronto. They're half a game up on Brooklyn. Could they lose enough to drop down and get to the 5th spot? So if a team leapfrogs them in the lottery, that they would still hang on to their draft pick. Remember, everybody, we've said it a bunch already, but their pick, it is top 6 protected. And right now, that is the only silver lining for the 76ers on the season, is that maybe they could actually keep their pick. As of right now, they would require a little bit of lottery luck. They would have to move up in order to keep their pick currently. Now, we'll see how things all sit when the season's actually over. But they're in a pretty precarious position here, the 76ers are.
Yeah, definitely not where you want to be, as far as you don't want to go in being straight 7th, because then you need to jump. And we just to add to what you said, here's the good news. When you're looking at it this way, normally we talk about they've got the same amount of losses. When you look at it this way, you look at it as wins, because you're trying. It's always whatever you're trying not to have. Right, that's what you're looking at, and you're trying not to have wins. In this case, if you're Philly, they're only 2 wins behind Toronto, so they can control that a little bit. Toronto does play pretty scrappy, so
they do.
We'll see. And then I think with New Orleans, they've played much better recently. Now 5-5 in their last 10, so let's not get crazy. That's a heck of a lot better than the 2-8 they were putting up in every 10-game stretch before that. So yeah, that's it. Zion looks terrific. He's playing Zion playing the 3 right now because he shed enough weight that he can handle playing the 3 and defending out on the perimeter. He looks great. To be quite honest, this is maybe the best he's looked physically since he's come into the NBA. So maybe New Orleans, if they keep kind of winning at this rate, if you're Philly. But if you're Philly, you really got to bottom it out. But Nick Nurse said the other day, we're not talking about that. We're still going to keep pushing to try to make the play-in. And the last play-in spot is the Bulls, and they are, sure, you're only two games out, 1 game out in the loss column, but why to have to win 2 games on the road to then face the Cavs, because you're not catching Atlanta.
No,
that's still a 5-game difference. So I don't get it.
I understand the bravado or the well, we're not tanking. We're not, there's some nobility to that. We're going to try to win games all the way through. And that's fine. Putting that out there publicly. You don't want to publicly say, oh yeah, we're trying to lose games, but there's bravado, there's nobility, there's whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
And there's stupidity. I mean, you're 2 games out. You're 1-9 in your last 10. Joel Embiid is done for the season, and your reward, if you do make it, as you said, and win 2 play-in games on the road, is to get crushed by the Cavs. I mean, the 76ers are 1-9 in their last 10. The Cavs are 10-0 in their last 10. You're going to get swept. The Cavs are going to sweep you in the first round if you even get there.
Too. They're going to blow them out.
Yeah.
Probably every game. Yeah.
So doesn't make No, makes no sense. Makes
more miles on George and Maxey. Why? And I've seen people saying, well, they can't shut those guys down because of the player participation policy. But they both have legitimate injuries. George has openly talked about having to get painkillers to play. We don't even know that those are for his finger, by the way. We assume that's what they may be for, but he's dealt with knee stuff. He had, I think, a groin thing and a shoulder thing, so who knows? And then Maxey now has this finger thing where Nick Nurse, again, openly talked about, we're teaching him to shoot with only 3 fingers on the ball. Because, now you're talking about maybe messing his shot up. What are we doing? If I'm Philly fans, I'm like, didn't we already mess with the shot for 2 other guys who were young, promising players and never ended up the same and ended up terrible? Stop doing all this, sit guys out, and just be done. But it is what it is. So at least Embiid's out, and they're not forcing him to just, lug his leg up and down the court for 30 minutes a night for no reason at all.
There's something. Come on, Philly, figure it out. All right. Ayo Dosunmu out for the
Yeah.
season. I still think, Keith, the Chicago Bulls are going to fall backwards into that final playoff spot and fall back. I mean, 2-8 in their last 10, but somebody's got to have that last play-in spot, I should say. That somebody's got to get it, and I still think the Bulls will, but
well, Billy Donovan said over the weekend they want it. Like he's like, these guys want to play in the play-in tournament, which fine, I guess. They'll probably just lose in the first game anyway, and it won't change anything for their overall future. So sure, hey, you could improve your draft pick a little here if you lost a few games, but whatever. It's probably not going to make that big of a difference. Philly, why we've harped on it, why we will continue to harp on it, is because of that top 6 restriction for them where they've got to be there. The Bulls, their restrictions were removed when they made their trades at the trade deadline. Same thing. The Nets have no restriction on their pick. So you're just trying to improve your pick as much as you can, I guess, in that case, but it's not absolutely imperative that you fall as far as you can, like it is with Philly.
All right, let's jump over to a team whose season has gotten, there's so much negativity right now. Team
we're going to pick it up at the end, though. We're going to pick it up at the end.
We will, but the team whose season has gone completely sideways, the Orlando Magic, Keith, this offense is awful. And now Jalen Suggs, knee surgery. They have the worst three-point shooting percentage in the NBA by a wide margin. They can't shoot, and that is completely holding them back. They've lost their last 3 games. They're the 8th seed right now in the East. Keith, this is legitimately one of the best defenses in the NBA and has the potential to be they're phenomenal defensively, and they cannot do anything on the offensive end. And now they're losing Jalen Suggs to knee surgery. God, this is when we hit the trade deadline, you were frustrated that the Magic didn't do anything. And this stretch right now that they're in, it just makes that even more the case. It's just more frustrating that they didn't do anything because there's real potential here on the defensive side of the ball. They just are god awful on offense.
Yeah, can't shoot, can't even get easy buckets. They are also last in pace this year. They're tied with the Nets right now, which the Nets are playing slow, I think, to try to keep games reasonable. Try to keep it, the lower the possessions, the less chance you get blown out.
Right.
With the Magic, it is just they don't do anything that's easy offense. And I put it out on social media today. They should be an elite rip and run team. And what I mean by rip and run is you pull down the rebound and that guy brings it up himself. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are both very good rebounders who can handle the ball, make decisions in transition. And if I'm Orlando, I would be saying, let's push, because you need to start stealing offense however you can. And the easiest way to steal some easy offense, get it up the floor quickly, attack, before the defense is set. But instead, they walk it up every possession. I have not checked this over the last couple of weeks, but 2 weeks ago, it was basically right at the All-Star break. They were worst in the league in getting the ball up the court, meaning they start their possessions at about 17 on the shot clock in the half court, which means you used almost all, because it's 8-second violation.
Yeah.
If you don't get it over. So that means you've used basically almost your time. Exactly. And you've used basically a third of the shot clock up just getting the ball up the court. And it's not because teams are pressuring them and they just walk it up and play slow. And I got it when it was like Jalen Suggs and a whole bunch of dudes because Banchero was out, Wagner was out, because you had to limit the possessions. But this has continued now with Banchero and Wagner back. And it's just, they've got young guys. They've got young legs. They should be getting up and down the floor a lot more than this. They've got pretty good rebounders. You can only run if you can rebound, right? Can't run if you can't rebound. They do rebound just fine. They get plenty of stops. It just get a stop, walk it up, use up almost the whole shot clock, and throw up a terrible shot. It reminds me of, do you remember the Cavs of the 90s? You're enough younger than me. You may not
Mark Price?
remember this. After Mark Price. So this was like the Terrell Brandon years where he was like their guy, and Mike Fratello was their coach. And it was like, we are going to play the ugliest basketball. And his whole thing was, we don't have enough talent to beat anybody. At the time, he said, try to beat anybody in shootouts, scoring 100 points. So he's like, we are going to slow it down, use up every bit of the shot clock before we take shots there. And that's what they did. And they were successful, but it was disgusting to watch because it was just so bad. That's where the Magic are right now. They are a really tough watch because it's just so many pass it around the perimeter a little bit, and then Paulo or Franz take a tough contested mid-ranger because that's what you can get to at the end. It's nothing comes easy for them offensively.
If they can't shoot, they need to make up for quality of shooting with quantity, and they're not doing that.
Yeah.
So
if you can't score, you have to play fast because otherwise you leave yourself no margin for error. You're never going to put up enough points. Like if you can't feel like you can get offense, you're going to struggle. And that's where, like we talked about that with the Lakers a little bit when we thought they might struggle defensively, and they have not since the trade. But we talked about like where it could get a little weird is they're probably not going to play very fast. And to be fair, they're still not playing very fast, but their defense has been great, and they're getting really good shots almost every possession, which shocker, LeBron and Luka. But that's the difference, right? They can trust we're going to get and create good shots. The Magic can't trust that, so you have to start playing faster. But I just don't know that they have it in them. It's been rough, and Jalen Suggs being out is weird to say. Hurts them way more offensively than it does defensively, considering what a wonderful defensive player he is.
Yeah, it really does. All right, let's get over here. The Sacramento Kings, Sabonis hamstring injury. This is another kind of, I mean, you've got Sacramento here.
Yeah.
They are sitting in the 9 seed right now in the West. They are essentially tied with the Mavs, though. When we look at games back, they could. I mean, again, they're another team where you could say, well, they're half a game
tied with the Clippers too,
right? I mean, they're half a game out of 6th, right? Like they could be a playoff, not play-in team, but this is, and they've won their last 3. But this is a blow to be dealing with. And hamstring injuries, we know, notoriously tricky. They can linger, so. This is going to be may end up being what separates some of these teams. Keith, is how healthy can they stay down the home stretch?
Yeah, absolutely. 5 games up in the loss column on the Suns. Not worried about it falling that far because let's remember, if maybe people have checked out a little bit on the Kings, they did get Valanciunas, so it's not like they're turning to nobody or just random center play like kind of Dallas has had to do. Valanciunas will slot in there. He'll be the starting 5. Trey Lyles, who had been out of the rotation when they were fully healthy coming out of the break, he'll now move back into the rotation and play. They have an open roster spot. I'm going to guess they're one of the teams that makes a call to Moses Brown. We're going to talk more about him in just a moment. And they should be one of the teams that makes a call to him. So if I'm the Kings, I feel like, okay, I can get through this. But yeah, it's just going to be tougher. Sabonis is such a big part of everything they do. Here's the good news. It was the mildest of hamstring strains on the scale. So that's good. He'll be reevaluated in a week. But Nate Duncan's the one who says this almost all the time. If a player is forced to leave a game, meaning leave and not return to a game with a muscle injury, it's almost always going to be a week that they're going to be out. Because otherwise it's like, okay, it was actually a cramp or I felt something, but it's not there now. And then they can get back in and finish that game. So when they're out, and this was like a minute and a half into the game that this happened. So it's a week. So even if it takes 2 weeks to get there, just keep playing because they're playing pretty good since the All-Star break ended. They've really kind of found their footing after. I mean, it's not an easy thing to incorporate a guy like Zach LaVine, right? That's a 20 shot a night guy into a lineup with already 3 20 shot a night guys.
Sure.
If Malik Monk's in that range, but you know where I'm going with that. So that's a little harder to work in, and they're making it work and go. That's why I feel a little bit better about this too. Valanciunas solid, Lyles solid, LaVine, DeRozan, Monk, they can all pick up the offensive load. It'll be the rebounding and the playmaking that they'll miss there because let's face it, they're not really going to miss a whole lot defensively with Sabonis, but it's that rebounding playmaking. But I think they'll be okay.
All right, Keith, let's close things out.
Yeah.
Lots of roster movement around do you want to just run through the list?
Yeah, I mean, I can run through it kind of quickly here. I'm not going to hit on every single one of these in detail. Let's do the Moses Brown thing because that's kind of he played awesome for Dallas. So Dallas signed him to a 10-day. He played in 2 got 2 starts at the end of that 10-day for the Mavericks, and he put up, I think it was like 39 and 20 total in those 2 games. I mean, he was
Insane.
really good. But Dallas, and then everybody's like, well, Dallas will keep him. They can't. They don't have enough room under their first apron hard cap. They're going to have to leave that roster spot open now until April 10th, which is with 4 days left in the season. That's when they can afford to sign somebody again into that spot. So Moses Brown finishes the 10-day. He's back as a free agent now. Kings, the Knicks have been linked to him. He's going to pop back up on somebody's roster. You don't throw up 39 and 20 over a 2-game span and then go unsigned.
Yeah.
A couple other moves, and these are all pretty much conversion moves because that's what's happening right now. You're seeing teams are converting players off of 2-way contracts and onto standard contracts at the end of the year. This happens every year post-trade deadline. And tomorrow, March 4th, Tuesday, March 4th, that's the deadline to sign a player to a 2-way. So what that means is if you're going to make that move, you want to get the guy converted so then you can backfill them. So a couple of conversions that have happened. Jalen Clark, we talked about last week. Jordan Miller with the Clippers, really well earned. He's played well in limited minutes for them. Dominic Barlow of the Hawks. And then Justin Champagnie with the Wizards with that one. Excuse me. Nate Williams with the Rockets. That one's a little weirder. He hasn't had a huge impact, but sure, I guess. And then Jaden Springer, who landed with the Jazz, did a 10-day. He's getting a rest of season contract, as well as Bismack Biyombo, the, in theory, Wemby replacement. He's been the starting center for the Spurs since Wemby went out. He is going to stick in San Antonio for the rest of the season. Then there's a bunch of 2-way moves that have happened. I'll just call out a couple of the more notable names on that. Jalen Hood-Schifino gets a 2-way with the 76ers, so chance to kind of be around them. And that's a team where you could actually see some NBA playing time down the stretch if they pivot there. Kai Jones is going to do a 2-way with Dallas, who waived Kyler Kelly, who was on a 2-way. So Kai Jones was on a 2-way with the Clippers. And what's happened with a lot of these guys, they ran out of games. You have 50 games on the NBA, not games played, but 50 games active on an NBA roster. And a lot of these guys ran out of their games with their other teams. So now they're moving on to other teams there with that one. So those are the kind of bigger names there. You to watch with that. We're probably going to get some more of that today and probably some more of that tomorrow. And then after that, we will see maybe a handful over the last month or so of the season of more conversions and probably a couple more signings for playoff teams that have an open roster spot. Because what that will do is that'll allow them to fill out their roster going into the playoffs. Because nobody carries an open roster spot into the postseason because you want to have the break glass in case of emergency, guys, just in case you have like the Knicks or the Cavs last year where 7-8 guys go down and you need to throw somebody in the lineup.
Yeah, and that's just it. You've got to have some guys out there just to throw in, especially as we get late in the season here. Well, first of all, Moses Brown, I mean, insult to injury, I guess, for Dallas, given how we already talked about what's been going on there. They get a guy to actually play really well, and then they have to watch him walk away. Yep. That's frustrating. How surprised are you that the Lakers didn't make a move to move Jordan Goodwin up to a full spot?
Yeah, I think they may. Still, it wouldn't shock me if that happens at some point. Again, if they want to replace Jordan Goodwin with South Bay, they would need to do that on a 2-way contract by tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
So there's a chance that could still happen. I mean, Cam Reddish is, I believe, back with the team now. He's not playing, so that's if there's an easy waiver to make to open up a roster spot, that would presumably be it.
Now he would not be playoff eligible if he gets waived now. And perhaps they just say, well, no, another team's not going to sign him anyway. Exactly. And maybe that's where we're at.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I know you and I texted about this one a little bit. The Rockets waived Cody Zeller, or will waive him. They open up the spot for Nate Williams. Cody Zeller has not played all year. He was signed strictly to be a part of the DeJounte Murray trade to make the math work and has not played all year for the Hawks. Didn't even report to Atlanta. Never even was required to report to Houston because it was that's just a contract figure. So they're waiving him. He's no longer playoff eligible, but it doesn't matter anyway because he's not going to play again in the NBA. Reddish, you could make a case. Maybe a team would say, hey, we want to pick him up. And maybe the Lakers are like, we're actually good with what we have.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Jordan Goodwin has probably earned a spot. So that would be, but you have to open one up for him. Where the Lakers could do this later too and say, hey, let's use up his two-way eligibility and do it later down the line. Because remember, you can still do that. You just would not be able to backfill a two-way spot. The way they may be able to get around that is Bronny James plays a lot in the G League, and he's a standard player coming off the roster to go to the G League. And that's almost like a trade-off there a little bit where, well, we backfill the G League play. But the reality is very few teams beyond, would like a little bit more depth for the final month and a half of the season. They don't really care about filling that last two-way spot when there's a couple weeks left because the G League season's over by then anyway. Then you're really talking about we have 6 games left. We'll get through it without having to play our two-way guys. So I do think Jordan Goodwin will be on a standard spot with the Lakers. It just may not be today or tomorrow. That one may happen down the line. And honestly, that's not the bad way to go about it because let's say you waived Cam Reddish to convert Jordan Goodwin, and then let's say 6 other wings got hurt.
Yeah.
Now you're like, boy, wish we had Cam Reddish.
Right.
You why not use up Goodwin's two-way games? I'd have to check to see where he's at as far as his eligibility goes.
They got to be getting close to 90
games.
total also because they played Coloco so much.
Yeah. And they're probably fine though because they've had a full roster for a lot of the year, right? So as long as you had a full roster, you're not going to run into those under 15 games. So, but yeah, they'll be okay. That's the only time that comes into play. So I think the Lakers will be all right. I think they'll make their decision a little bit later. Where that'll come down.
And JJ Redick did recently say Jordan Goodwin is going to be part of the rotation for the foreseeable future. Yep. So
I think he even said something like, we're looking forward to seeing what he does in the postseason. And I think he kind of caught himself and was like, because he's been a great player for us and then just moved along. So yeah,
it'll happen. It's just a question of when. And and he's dealing with a sprained ankle right now. So he's got to get back and healthy.
And that's it's not good that he's hurt because I don't want to make that a thing here, but you're not using up NBA days for him because he goes on the inactive list and then he's not using into any more of his remaining NBA days. But we're down to those moves will still get made after the fact a little bit. Like Boston the last couple years after the two-way signing deadline going into the very end of the season has converted guys from two-way contracts to the standard roster. And that's a way, a lot of teams will do that to kind of reward a guy. Hey, thanks for your work on the two-way all year. Sometimes it's a guy maybe he's been in the organization for a year or two. Let's convert a guy that way, get him onto the roster and go. So, yeah, I'll be moderately surprised if Jordan Goodwin is not on the Lakers standard roster by the end of the season. And that's April 13th. If anybody's wondering, that is the last day to make a move.
Right. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But I think we're about out of time here. I know we got stuff to go get to. But thank you, everybody, for joining us here on this fine Monday. We'll be back tomorrow with all the latest going on around the NBA. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube, as well as over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody, see ya and stay safe.